Your alarm goes off and there's this split second before you remember, before the wake comes back, before you have to face another day in a reality you didn't choose and don't want. And in that split second you're just a person waking up. But then it floods back. The loss, the heartbreak, the thing that changed everything. And you have this moment where you have to decide if you're going to get up or if you're going to pull the covers back over your head and let the day pass without you. And you get up. Not because you want to. Not because you feel strong or motivated or ready to face the world. But because you've gotten up every morning since it happened, and somehow that pattern is stronger than the urge to stay down. And nobody sees that as the victory it is. Nobody counts that as strength. Nobody acknowledges that simply showing up to another day when every cell in your body wants to opt out is actually the hardest thing you're doing right now. They see you functioning and they think you're fine. They see you going through the motions and they assume you've moved on. They don't understand that what looks like normal from the outside is taking every ounce of energy you have. That your biggest accomplishment today isn't anything you did. It's the fact that you did anything at all. This became real for me about 7 months ago. Something happened that completely fractured my sense of how life was supposed to go. I'm not going to get into the specifics because the details don't actually matter. What matters is that one day I was living one version of my life, and the next day that version was gone. Replaced by this new reality that I didn't ask for and wasn't prepared for. And in those first few days, I genuinely didn't know how to keep going. I remember lying in bed at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling this weight on my chest that was so physical I couldn't tell if it was emotional or if something was actually wrong with my body. Everything hurt. Not in a specific way I could point to. Just this all-encompassing ache that made breathing feel like work. I kept thinking about all the things I was supposed to do. I had a job I needed to show up to. Bills that needed to be paid. Responsibilities that didn't pause just because my world had imploded. And I couldn't imagine doing any of it. Couldn't imagine putting on work clothes and pretending to care about meetings and deadlines. Couldn't imagine going through the regular motions when everything felt fundamentally broken. But the alarm went off the next morning and I got up anyway. Not because I made some conscious decision to be strong. I just got up because not getting up felt like an admission of something I wasn't ready to admit. Like if I stayed in bed, if I let the day happen without me, I was accepting that this pain had won. That it was bigger than me. That I couldn't survive it. So I got up. And I went through the motions. Shower, coffee, commute, work. And every single step felt impossible. Felt like I was moving through concrete. Like my body weighed 1,000 pounds and every movement required deliberate effort. But I did it. I showed up. And people at work acted normal. Asked how my weekend was, talked about their projects, complained about the usual things. And I participated. I gave appropriate responses. I nodded at the right times. I performed being a person who was okay. But inside I was screaming. Inside I was barely holding it together. Inside, every moment was this exhausting calculation of how to appear functional when I felt like I was falling apart. I remember sitting at my desk that first day back, staring at my computer screen and feeling this disconnect. Like I was watching myself from outside my body. Like there was the version of me that people could see, sitting there working, and then there was the real me somewhere deep inside, curled up in a ball, trying to figure out how to keep breathing. And that became my reality. Every morning the alarm. Every morning that split second of peace before remembering. Every morning the decision to get up anyway. Not because I wanted to. Not because I felt strong. But because the alternative felt worse somehow. Because staying down felt like giving up, and I wasn't ready to give up, even though I didn't know what I was fighting for anymore. I started measuring my days differently. Before, I'd measure success by what I accomplished, how productive I'd been, what I'd achieved. But now, success was just getting through. Getting to the end of the day without completely falling apart. Making it to bedtime so I could reset and try again tomorrow. And nobody knew. Nobody could see how hard this was. Because from the outside I looked functional. I was showing up to work, responding to messages, maintaining my responsibilities, so people assumed I was fine, assumed I was handling it well, assumed I'd moved through the initial shock and was now on the other side of it. But I wasn't on the other side of anything. I was still in it. Every single day. Every morning was still a battle. Every moment of normalcy was still an act. Every interaction was still exhausting. I was just getting better at hiding it, better at performing okayness, better at making it look easy when it was anything but. I'd have these moments throughout the day where the pain would hit me fresh. Like I'd forget for a second, get absorbed in a task or a conversation, and then I'd remember and it would knock the breath out of me all over again. And I'd have to excuse myself, go to the bathroom or take a walk or just stand somewhere alone for a minute until I could get my face back to neutral, until I could put the mask back on and rejoin the world. And the worst part was how alone it felt. How isolating it was to be walking around in this much pain while everyone else was just living their normal lives. While they were complaining about traffic or getting excited about weekend plans or talking about mundane things that used to matter to me but now felt completely irrelevant. I wanted to shake them sometimes. Wanted to tell them that none of this matters. That all the things we worry about and stress over are so small compared to real pain, real loss, real heartbreak. But I couldn't say that, because it would sound dramatic, because it would make them uncomfortable, because you're supposed to keep your pain private, supposed to process it on your own time, supposed to not bring it into spaces where people are just trying to live their normal lives. So I kept showing up, kept getting through, kept measuring my days by the fact that I'd made it through them. And slowly, very slowly, something started to shift. Not the pain. The pain was still there, but my relationship to it changed slightly. I started to notice that I was surviving it, that every day I got through was evidence that I could get through the next one, that every morning I got up was proof that I was stronger than I thought. Not strong in some inspirational quote kind of way. Strong in this very basic, very unglamorous way where I just kept existing despite everything in me wanting to stop. Maybe you're in this place right now. Maybe you're waking up every morning to a reality you didn't choose. Maybe you're going through the motions while internally you're barely holding it together. Maybe your biggest accomplishment is just showing up, and nobody seems to understand that that's actually monumental. Here's what nobody tells you about surviving heartbreak, about getting through real pain. They don't tell you that it's not linear, that you don't just gradually feel better day by day. That there are good days and terrible days and days where you can't even tell which kind of day it is until it's over. They don't tell you that functionality and healing aren't the same thing. That you can be showing up to work, maintaining your responsibilities, looking completely fine from the outside while internally you're still in the middle of it. Still hurting. Still struggling. Still doing everything you can just to get through. And they definitely don't tell you that this is actually strength. That getting up every morning despite the pain is actually incredible. That going through the motions when you don't want to go through anything is actually brave. That simply existing in a reality that hurts is actually one of the hardest things a person can do. We measure strength by visible achievements, by what you accomplish despite obstacles, by how quickly you bounce back, by your ability to not just survive but thrive. And if you're not thriving, if you're just surviving, people think you're not doing it right. People think you should be further along by now. People think you're dwelling or not trying hard enough to move forward. But survival is its own achievement. Getting through the day when the day feels impossible is its own success. Showing up to your life when your life doesn't look like what you thought it would is its own form of courage. And the hardest part is that this kind of strength is invisible. Nobody gives you credit for it. Nobody acknowledges how hard you're working just to appear normal. Nobody sees the effort it takes to put on work clothes and show up to meetings. Nobody understands that the energy you're spending just to function is energy other people get to spend on actual goals, actual growth, actual moving forward. You're not moving forward. You're just moving. Just putting one foot in front of the other. just getting from one day to the next. And that doesn't look impressive. That doesn't sound like success. That doesn't fit into the narrative of overcoming and thriving and coming out stronger on the other side. But it's everything. It's the foundation that every other kind of strength is built on. It's the proof that you can survive things you thought would destroy you. It's the evidence that pain, no matter how overwhelming, doesn't actually have the power to stop you from existing. And maybe that doesn't feel like enough. Maybe you look around and see other people who've been through hard things and they're not just surviving, they're flourishing. They're talking about how their struggle made them better, stronger, more grateful. They're turning their pain into purpose. They're making it mean something. And you're just here. Just existing. Just getting through. And that feels like failure in comparison. Like you're not doing grief right. Like you're not healing fast enough. Like you should be further along in whatever process you're supposed to be in. But there is no right way to do this. There's no timeline for healing. There's no point at which you're supposed to be over it. There's just day after day of waking up and deciding to participate in your life even when your life doesn't feel worth participating in. And that decision, that choice to keep going, that's not nothing. That's everything. The pain you're carrying isn't going to be convenient. It's not going to wait until you have time to process it. It's not going to take a break while you're at work or with friends or trying to sleep. It's just there. Constant. Heavy. Unrelenting. And you're carrying it anyway. You're functioning anyway. You're showing up anyway. And that's not weak. That's not just survival. That's strength in its most fundamental form. The strength to exist in pain. The strength to keep going when stopping would be easier. The strength to face another day when yesterday almost broke you. Nobody's writing inspirational quotes about this kind of strength. Nobody's making social media posts celebrating the fact that you got out of bed this morning. Nobody's acknowledging that you went to work despite feeling like you were dying inside. Nobody's seeing any of this as the victory it actually is. But it is a victory. Every morning is a victory. Every day you get through is proof that you're stronger than the pain trying to stop you. Not because you've overcome it. Not because you've healed from it. But because you're still here despite it. Still functioning despite it. Still participating in life despite it. So about 3 months into this, something happened that completely changed how I saw everything. I was having coffee with a friend, just a regular catch-up. And she was telling me about her life, her work, some struggle she was having with a project. And I was listening, trying to engage, trying to be present. And then she stopped mid-sentence and looked at me. And she said something I wasn't expecting. She said she didn't know how I was doing it, how I was showing up and functioning and appearing so normal when I was going through something so hard. She said she'd been watching me these past few months and she was in awe of how strong I was being. And I just stared at her because that's not how I felt at all. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was barely surviving. Like I was one bad moment away from completely falling apart. Like I was performing strength but not actually possessing it. And I told her that. Told her that I didn't feel strong at all. That most days I was just going through the motions. That getting out of bed was my biggest accomplishment. That everything past that was just momentum, just habit, just the pattern of showing up because I'd been showing up. And she was quiet for a moment. And then she told me about something that had happened to her a few years ago. Something that had broken her in a similar way. And she said she'd spent 6 months barely functioning. She'd taken leave from work. She'd moved back in with her parents. She'd essentially paused her entire life because she couldn't figure out how to keep living it. And she said she'd needed that. That she wasn't criticizing herself for it. That taking that time to completely fall apart was probably what saved her. But that she'd watched me not take that option. Watched me keep showing up despite everything. Watched me maintain my life even when my life felt unbearable. And she said that was a different kind of strength than what she'd had. That it wasn't better or worse, just different. But definitely strong. And something about hearing that shifted something in me. Because I'd been comparing myself to some imaginary version of strength where you don't feel the pain. where you overcome quickly, where you bounce back and move forward and turn your struggle into growth. I'd been measuring myself against that standard and finding myself lacking. But what if strength wasn't about not feeling pain? What if it was about feeling it fully and functioning anyway? What if it wasn't about bouncing back quickly but about slowly, painfully, getting through each day even when each day felt impossible? I started thinking about all the mornings I'd gotten up, all the days I'd gone to work, all the interactions where I'd performed okayness while internally I was struggling, and I'd been seeing all of that as just survival, just the bare minimum, just what you have to do because the world doesn't stop for your pain. But it wasn't the bare minimum. It was actually extraordinary. It was choosing to participate in life when life felt unbearable. It was showing up when showing up took everything I had. It was maintaining my responsibilities when I didn't have anything left for myself. And I realized something else. I'd been waiting for the pain to go away before I could call myself strong. Waiting to heal before I could acknowledge that I'd survived. Waiting to be on the other side before I could give myself credit for getting through. But I was already strong. Every single day. Every single morning. The strength wasn't going to come later after I'd healed. The strength was in the healing process itself. In the getting through. In the showing up despite. I thought about my friend who'd taken 6 months off, and I realized she'd been strong too. Strong enough to know what she needed. Strong enough to take it. Strong enough to prioritize her healing over everything else. That was its own kind of courage. And I'd been strong in a different way. Strong enough to keep going even when I didn't want to. Strong enough to maintain my life even when maintaining my life took everything I had. Strong enough to get up every morning even when every morning felt impossible. Neither way was better. Neither way was right. They were just different responses to unbearable pain. Different strategies for survival. Different forms of strength that showed up in different ways. And I started looking at my daily existence differently. Not as failure to thrive. Not as just barely surviving. But as active, ongoing strength. Every morning I woke up was a choice. Maybe not a conscious choice, maybe just a habitual choice, but a choice nonetheless. A choice to face another day. To participate in life. To keep going. That was proof I was stronger than yesterday's pain. Not because the pain was less. But because I was still here despite it. Still functioning despite it. Still showing up despite it. So if you're in this place right now, if your biggest accomplishment is just getting through the day, if you're measuring your success by whether you managed to get out of bed this morning, I need you to hear this. That's not nothing. That's not just survival. That's strength in its purest form. You're doing something incredibly difficult. You're living through pain that could easily stop you. You're functioning when functionality feels impossible. You're showing up when showing up takes everything you have. And that matters. That counts. That's worthy of recognition even if nobody's recognizing it. And I know it doesn't feel like strength from the inside. I know it feels like barely holding it together. I know it feels like you're just going through the motions because stopping would be worse. I know it feels like everyone else is actually living while you're just surviving. But surviving is living. Getting through is moving forward. Showing up is participating. You're not behind because you're struggling. You're not failing because you're hurting. You're not weak because this is hard. You're human. You're in pain. And you're still here. Still trying. Still facing each day even when each day feels like too much to face. Write me a comment about what showing up looks like for you right now. What's your victory that nobody else sees? What's the thing you're doing every day that's taking everything you have? What's your proof that you're stronger than yesterday's pain? And hit that like button if you know what it's like to measure your success by whether you got out of bed. If you've had to perform okayness while internally falling apart. If your biggest accomplishment is just getting through. Let's acknowledge that this kind of strength is real even when it's invisible. Tell me in the comments about a time when someone acknowledged your quiet strength. Or tell me what you need to hear right now. What validation you're not getting. what recognition you deserve for just showing up. Because I think we need to talk more honestly about this. About how functioning doesn't mean healed. About how survival is its own accomplishment. About how showing up when showing up is hard is actually one of the bravest things you can do. About how every morning you wake up is proof that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you yesterday. Let's build a space here where we can admit that we're struggling. Where we can be honest about how hard it is just to get through. Where we can acknowledge that what looks functional from the outside is actually taking everything we have. Where we can celebrate survival as the victory it is. And if you know someone who's going through something hard right now, someone who's showing up despite their pain, someone who's functioning when functionality is taking everything they have, send this to them. Tell them you see their strength. Tell them you know how hard they're working just to get through. Tell them that showing up counts. That getting through matters. That they're stronger than they feel. Maybe strength isn't about overcoming. Maybe it's about enduring. Maybe it's not about bouncing back quickly but about slowly, painfully, continuing to exist despite pain that could stop you. Maybe it's not about thriving but about surviving. And maybe surviving is actually enough. Every morning you wake up is proof. Proof that you're still here. Proof that the pain hasn't won. Proof that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you. Not because you don't hurt. Not because you've healed. But because you're still showing up. Still trying. Still participating in your life even when your life feels unbearable. That's not nothing. That's everything. That's the foundation that everything else is built on. The strength to exist in pain. The courage to keep going. The determination to face another day even when yesterday almost destroyed you. You're doing it. Right now. Today. Every day. You're proving that you're stronger than your pain. Not by overcoming it, but by surviving it. By getting through. By showing up. By being here. And that's enough. Even when it doesn't feel like enough. Even when you wish you were thriving instead of just surviving. Even when you compare yourself to people who seem to be handling their pain better. You're enough. What you're doing is enough. Getting through is enough. Keep waking up. Keep showing up. Keep getting through. Not because it will get easier. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But because every day you do is proof that you can. Proof that you're stronger than you think. Proof that pain, no matter how overwhelming, doesn't actually have the power to stop you from existing. And that's powerful. Even when it doesn't feel powerful. Especially when it doesn't feel powerful. That's when it's most true.